to BBTV. I'm your host, Jeff White. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk to you guys about a hot topic that's all over the news right now, and that's bed bugs in retail stores. You know, there have been a lot of news articles lately about people finding bed bugs in retail stores, whether it's clothing stores or whatever the case may be. And this can be a pretty scary story for somebody to read. You know, you're flipping through the newspaper, you're reading about bed bugs in retail stores, and you start saying to yourself, you know, oh my God, I'm going to go to the mall this afternoon. Do I have to worry about encountering bed bugs on the clothes that I'm going to buy at whatever store you're going shopping at? And it's a very honest concern. And so what I want to do is I want to explain to you my thoughts and how this kind of plays out in regards to bed bugs in these environments, and then some things that you can do if you're concerned with this problem. Now, the bottom line with bed bugs in retail stores is that in retail stores, you know, you don't have somebody theoretically sleeping there. And you don't have people necessarily sitting still really long enough for bed bugs to feed. And so this is not an ideal environment for bed bugs to be in. Because of that, it's not likely that you're going to encounter bed bugs in a retail store. You know, that's not something you're typically going to see, but you should be aware that it could happen, and that if you're concerned about it, I will go through some things later that you can do, and then if you're a retail store manager, that you do need to be in tune to this problem. So what basically happens is that bed bugs obviously travel on either people's belongings or sometimes even their clothes and go from one environment to another. And so it is possible that somebody could be shopping in a store, they say put their purse down, and they had a bed bug on it because they have a problem at home, and that bug walks off onto whatever table it's on, and then theoretically that store now has a bed bug issue. Now, we can debate whether or not one bug is a bed bug problem, and that's a whole long topic that we'll debate another time. But that's how bugs, or one way bugs could be introduced into that environment. Maybe a worker in that environment has a problem at home when they bring a bug in. Another scenario is that there's an apartment above or next to the store, attached to the store, and maybe one of those apartments has a problem and the bugs are walking down into the store. The last, and what I think the biggest concern is with bed bugs in retail stores, is actually returns. You know, that I think is the most likely scenario where a bug could be introduced to a retail store. So somebody buys something, they take it home, and say the return policy is 6 weeks, they don't return it for 5 weeks, and it turns out that they have a bed bug problem at home. That item was sitting next to their bed, they just didn't have time to look at it, and they realize they don't want it, they return it. In the meantime, a bunch of bugs walked onto it. And then they return it, and they're returning basically a bunch of bed bugs with their item. And in regards to that, retail stores do need to start to have a policy in place on proper ways to address returns. Now, obviously, they could take those items and, if they're clothing, just put them in a hot, dry cycle, and even a low dry cycle might work, and that would address any bugs on them. Either way, something is going to need to be done in order to address these clothes. And that, many experts think, is the most likely way that bed bugs would be introduced into a retail store. And so, again, you know, it's very unlikely that you're going to encounter bed bugs in a retail store. But if you are concerned about it, you can ask A, what the store is doing in regards to their returns, or B, you can take the matter into your own hands, and if you buy something, if it's clothing for instance, when you take it back to your house, you can put it in a hot wash and or a hot dry cycle before you introduce it into your home. And that should address any bugs on that item. Now, if it's not a clothing item and it's not something you can put in a hot wash and or hot dry cycle, that becomes a little bit more difficult of a topic because, you know, if it's an alarm clock or a box, you know, what are you really going to do if you're concerned about that? Now, again, it should be very unlikely that bugs are going to be associated with those items. But, you know, maybe you take it out of its box before you bring it in the home and leave the box outside, and then hopefully that alarm clock shouldn't have any bugs on it, and it typically won't. But it gets much more complicated. If you want more information on how to address personal belongings, you can go and watch the Bed Bugs in Personal Belongings episode of BBTV, and that will go into other options that you have in regards to those items. It unfortunately is not a simple answer when it comes to that stuff. But the bottom line is it's unlikely that you're going to encounter bed bugs in retail stores. Should you be aware of what bed bugs look like? Absolutely. That's one of our big goals when it comes to addressing the bed bug problem. Should you know how to address some of these items? Absolutely. And if you're doing these things, the chance that you're going to introduce a bed bug into your home, pretty slim when it comes to something you bought in a retail store. You should be aware, it is a possibility, although slim, and how to address those items. Alright everybody, so bed bugs in retail stores, not really shocking to a lot of experts, a little bit of a scary topic, but if you're aware of what you're doing, stores are starting to institute policy and procedure in regards to how to address returns. and then you're possibly taking a look at those items you're buying just to make sure there's nothing obvious associated with it, hopefully this will not be an issue moving forward. Alrighty, so if you have any questions, jeff.white@bedbugcentral.com. Email me those questions, and I hope to see everybody soon enough.